Moodog Films presents Paid to Dream with Charles Dennis. Hello, it's Charles Dennis, and we're back again with Paid to Dream and my extra special guest, Mr. Fred Melamed, calling me from the other side of town. How are you, Fred?
I'm very well, Charles. Pleasure to see you, as always.
As always, ditto, ditto, ditto. I thought about you this week when the rest of the world as well read of the passing of Diane Keaton.
Yeah,
And I know that one of your first movies, The Good Mother, was with Diane Keaton.
well, not my very first, but my very first movie with Woody Allen. Of the 7 movies that I made with Woody Allen, I was also in Hannah and Her Sisters, which of course also had her in it. And then that was quite a small role. I played one of the doctors. If you remember that movie, Woody Allen is convinced that he has a brain tumor, and I'm the first doctor that scares the shit out of him and tells him that he has likely a brain tumor. But I didn't get to really meet her or work with her on that. But the other picture that you mentioned, The Good Mother, which is an interesting movie and kind of got buried because of the subject matter, I did.
I think it also opened opposite 2 huge movies at the same time.
I think you're right about that. The movie, it was taken from a very popular, sad novel of the time. What it's about is, for those who haven't seen it, it's about a woman who goes through a very painful divorce. She has a young daughter who's I guess, about 5, but she gets divorced from her husband, and she's very lonely for a while. And then she meets a lovely man, and she becomes a relationship with this man. And Diane played the woman, and the man was, oh God, big star. I'm blanking on his name at the moment. Irish actor, plays all the
Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson, right? So Liam Neeson played her artist boyfriend, and the conceit of the story is that one time she leaves her daughter, her 5-year-old daughter, alone with him in the apartment, and she walks into the bathroom while he's taking a shower, and he gets out of the shower, and she sees his penis, and she says, "What's that?" And he says, "It's my penis," and she says, "Can I touch it?" And he goes, "Okay." And then her ex-husband, finds out about this and creates a huge issue out of it, and she winds up losing custody of the daughter, and it's a very sad story. Anyway, I played in that movie a psychiatrist who is hired to kind of assess the situation, whether or not harm has actually been done to the child and whether or not it was her fault. So I had some scenes with her, which were, great to do. And I also, a further note of sadness that's connected to this is Tony Roberts, also who appeared in many of Woody's early films, was a dear friend of mine. His father and my father were best friends. His father was an announcer called Ken Roberts from the kind of golden era of radio. And Ken and my dad were very, very close all their lives. And so he was quite a bit older than me, Tony. I knew his real name was David Anthony, but there was another David Roberts, so he had to become Tony Roberts. But I knew him all my life. And when I first decided to become an actor, when I first went to school, he was very encouraging and came to see me and things. And he was really a great, great guy in my life. And he also passed away about, I think, maybe, a month and a half ago, not very long ago. So many of the people that not only that the world knows and mourns, but people that I consider kind of contemporaries, a little older than me, but contemporaries, more or less, are vanishing. And it's particularly in the case of Diane, who everybody adored. It's very sad. And when anybody goes, it's sad, of course, but when somebody is so obviously full of life and all that, it's particularly jarring.
There was something on Facebook today that was very disturbing. I don't know if you saw it. A supposed funeral service for Diane, and Steve Martin spoke, and Jim Beaver, who I know through Brian Cox, he said this is absolute bullshit. He said he's facing the camera and the congregation is behind him. This is AI. This is a fabricated memorial.
Really? I didn't see that. Although there's more and more there's more and more of those AI things.
I know. I mean, I talked with our friend Lila Robbins the other day on Pay to Dream, and we talked about this Tilly, this English actress that's been created. And it's absolutely terrifying.
Yes, yes. It's this superstar. Well, there are many permutations and manifestations of this, the uses of AI. It's funny. I started using, everybody knows about Chat GPT. There's a pay service that you can log into, which I subscribe to, where you could talk to it on your phone, and you get much more in-depth, scholarly answers about various questions you may have or things you want to discuss. Uh, the old Turing test. Alan Turing had a test where he said that the real test of artificial intelligence will be when you can't tell that you're talking to a machine. You literally can be fooled that you're talking to a human being. This service that I subscribe to uh, passes that test. But what I've noticed is many of the answers are given in depth and are interesting and have, a lot of truth to them, but frequently they're completely wrong. Many times they're wrong. And they're given with the authority that you would assume, well, this can't possibly be the wrong answer, but they are entirely wrong. So we're at this kind of peculiar, neither fish nor fowl stage of artificial intelligence where it can be made good enough to fool us, both logically and also in what it can do visually. And yet sometimes it can be not only utterly phony, but misrepresent things in a very serious way. That's where we are with it.
I would be wary of someone stealing your voice, Fred. It's unique and it has served you well. You were the voice of CBS Sports for a long time.
I was, and before that, I was the voice of Mercedes-Benz and MCI and CBS News for a while and lots of other things. But it's funny. The Screen Actors Guild, the SAG-AFTRA, the now combined two unions, are trying their best to protect the rights, the work, the image, the voice of actors. Understandably, the unfortunate other side of the coin is that they construct things or claim to construct things without using human sources. I think it's hard to believe that they're not using human sources at some point in the construction of these things. The other thing about it that really is, I think, unavoidably true is that ultimately, just like when people complain about losing jobs to automation, there was I remember when the United Auto Workers made a huge deal about them bringing in robots to do car construction. Ultimately, we're going to have to find ways of dealing with it because anything that is commercially, economically that much more streamlined, that much more efficient, eventually will not be beaten. So I think, I think your instincts and the guild's instincts to protect us are absolutely right. But I also think it's going to be harder and harder because the difference between what's created, what is synthesized, and what is real is going to be harder and harder to parse and to discriminate.
I have no faith in SAG-AFTRA. I mean, I have done several video games and never received a penny in residuals. If three of them are like ginormous hits, and if I'd had the same kind of residuals that one would have had for a motion picture, I wouldn't have to work anymore. I mean, they were huge. They make more money than any movies. But SAG.
Well, it's only recently that we have any residuals from video games at all, and we do have now a very slight provision, but it's very.
Oh, really? But probably not retroactive. So.
No, it is not retroactive, but that's because, and that's because a lot of the same people designing the contracts were aware of what happened with the contracts for television, for network television, and for movies, and did their level best to prevent them having to disseminate those funds uh, with the kind of generosity that they have to actors, in movies and television. So it was not an accident that you know, it's quite a few years ago already that video game sales have entirely eclipsed all the rest of movies and television. What is made in video games vastly exceeds what's made in the entire motion picture industry. A lot of people don't know that, but it's true. It's absolutely true.
I mean, for me, I remember having dinner when your family first moved out here, and Lee discovered that I was the voice of Odavon, the dragon, and he called a friend to tell him, "Do you know who's here? Odavon." And I mean, I've never even played the game, so it's a
Yeah, it's that's a real generational thing. A real complete utter difference. They're and one of many. But our kids, my kids' age, my boys will be 23 this year, um, have never grown up without that stuff. It's been in their lives from the beginning, and so sophisticated by the time they were using it that it's really been a huge part of their growing up. I mean, I was the same, I guess, about television and movies on television as they are about video games. I remember very clearly my parents when I was growing up in New York. My parents had a little black and white TV, metal TV. And then, I don't know, my father started doing a little better and they bought one of those big numbers with a record with a hi-fi in it. And, those, when they used to have these big things that sat in your living room. So when they got that, they said, well, okay, you can have the little TV in your room.
how old were you?
Yeah. I was probably 8, 9.
And you had your own TV. Oh my!
I had my own TV, and believe me, every morning my eyes were. I looked like a 60-year-old man. My eyes were so swollen because I had no interest in going to sleep whatsoever. And this is long enough ago that television didn't go on all night. At least in New York, at about 2 in the morning, you'd get a picture of an Indian, and it would be
And we all had that Indian. Who was he? He should have got me.
I think it was yeah, Iron Eyes Cody. I think the idea was that you were supposed to be able to focus your television. Not that we knew, not that.
That's yes. That rings a bell.
Yeah, but
Well, it's the same now. Grayson's going to be 12 in December. He lies in bed, and he's got the laptop, and he's what TV? Well, goodbye.
yeah, it's you could see how vastly things have changed, and the landscape has changed also. I mean, we've talked about this before, but when I was growing up, and when you were growing up, in motion pictures, aside from television, there were always big budget spectacle kind of movies, always, and there always were small movies, but there was a significant area of overlap of movies that were intellectually, artistically uh, worthy, and also had some commercial potential. Lawrence of Arabia. I mean, many pictures that I could mention that you could think of. The landscape has changed completely now, and in television, I mean, in movies, you can still make a $3 million movie, or you can make a $90 million movie, or $180 million movie. But the middle level of stuff, the vast majority of it has gone to television, which has been very good for television, but not very good for movies. And it's entirely different. I people express um, a kind of a love for uh, the past, and usually for whatever artifact is associated with whatever form they grew up with. There are filmmakers, Paul Thomas Anderson and some others, who insist on shooting on film for reasons of their own. It's true that with the current breed of electronic cameras, you can achieve anything that you could achieve on film if you know how to do it. Plus a lot more. You have a lot wider uh, perspective of things that you can do. But I think people have a kind of attachment to whatever form was prevalent, was powerful when they were uh, becoming excited by all this. I think that's just part of our nature. But I think it's going to be harder and harder to have movie theaters. I mean,
Well, I think COVID didn't help.
oh, surely didn't help. But you see
So trying to get people back again is
well, it's not just that. People now have 85-inch screens. They have good sound systems. And the price of, I mean, if you go with your family, let's say you have two kids and you're a family of four, and you go out to see a movie now, it's $140 to see a movie when you're especially if you buy some popcorn or whatever. So it's a different thing now than it was, and that's why movie theaters are serving liquor and fancy meals and candelabras and all that kind of stuff. It's all and in some ways it's nice. It's nice to have a nice big comfy chair to sit on. I like that. But it doesn't bode well, at least in my view, for the future of theaters. I think it's going to be harder and harder to get people to go to the theater, movie theater.
there's still that, as Norma Desmond said, all those wonderful people out there in the dark. There is something about being with a large group of people in the dark watching it. It goes back to the caveman sitting around the fire in the cave and all the people.
Well, I agree with you, but I think for most people, that aspect of the experience, the fact that it is a collective experience, is not very important. I mean, I see what you're saying and I can feel it, but I think for filmmakers, for us as filmmakers, that's more important than for most audience members. I don't think they value that very much.
And I'm sick to death of telling people to shut up when I go to the movies. I'm sick of my feet sticking to the floor because somebody spilled something. I grew up with ushers going down the aisles telling you to be quiet.
Your feet stick to the floor because the kind of theaters you go to. You can't go to those dirty theaters anymore, Charles. You got to
Now we started talking about psychiatry early on in the Good Mother, and you've had more than your share of playing psychiatrist. Maybe people who
I've had more than my share of playing psychiatrists and seeing psychiatrists. I've had a very distinguished career as a patient, as a psychiatric patient. Long. Yeah,
now in Lovesick was your first movie, right?
that was my very first movie in which I had a.
And were you a psychiatrist in that?
I was. I was a psychiatrist in that.
There you go.
A very, very small part, but I remember it clearly. A very exciting experience for me. A movie, one of.
Did you meet Guinness?
Yes, I did. Did I ever tell you that story?
No, and Alec Guinness. In the movie, Dudley Moore is a psychiatrist, and he starts having visitations by Sigmund Freud, who was played by Sir Alec Guinness.
Right. So I was, I was just out. I got out of Yale Drama School in 1981. I think this movie was made in 84, if I remember right, or 83 or 84. I can't remember. I wasn't long out of drama school, whatever it was. And he was a big hero of mine, Alec Guinness, huge hero. And I was so excited. And I had one scene that I was in the movie with him, but I didn't do, I was just kind of sitting there like an extra, but I was in the scene with him, which was I was extremely chuffed about that. So at the end of and it happened to be a very long shooting day. And at the end of the day on a location in New York, at the end of the day, I said, I gotta, tell him how great I think he is. And so I said, Sir Alec, I hope you don't mind me, importuning you, but I just want to tell you what a huge influence you've been on me. And I think you're fabulous. You're one of my favorite actors of all time. I'm just wondering if you have any kind of words of wisdom or any show advice about show business for a young actor just starting out. And he thought for a moment and he said,
Yes, my advice regarding show business is don't get any on you.
That's all he said, which I've tried to live by. I don't know how successfully, but I've tried.
And what words of wisdom would you have for aspiring actors or young actors today?
Uh, the world has changed so radically. Show business, but everything in the world has changed that I'm not sure my advice, I'm not sure of the utility, of the usefulness of my advice. But here's kind of the basis of my advice for people that want to be in show business, especially actors, but for anybody. Don't listen to anybody. Um, what I mean by that is, I don't mean that people don't have good ideas or things that you can learn from, but it's true. All the discouragement that people give you, and I assume people still discourage people as they used to, say it's very, very difficult, it's very competitive, it's very hard to make a living, and all that other stuff, is absolutely true. It's very hard for most people who do it. For the vast majority of people who do it, even people with with success and kinds of, let's say, the modified successes or partial successes. And yet, the value of doing something that makes your heart sing and that has a kind of usefulness to it, and that somehow suits your own inner mechanics, is can't be overstressed. If it's where your heart is, do it. Do it. Um, the hardest thing about acting to me is to relax. It's very difficult, especially when you're young, to understand, not intellectually so much, but viscerally, that it's work. And when people look at it, they're looking at a piece of work that you do, but it's not judging you as an entire individual. It's a piece of work you're doing, which doesn't mean, of course, that you shouldn't work hard on it. You want it to be great if you can. But um, it's simply work, and you can adjust it, you can change it, you do the best you can. And that's it. You kind of do the best you can and strive to make it great. And then don't worry about it. I think learning to relax when you work is very, very important. It certainly was for me. So those two things are the kind of the most important things. And I never understood. Okay, so an actor like me, so I'm a character actor. I don't like being referred to as a working actor because I don't think who would want to be a working policeman or a working teacher or a working fireman. I think of myself as a minor star. I think that's accurate, somewhat accurate anyway. But an actor like me, a character actor, very often the roles that I'm called upon to play uh, serve a function within the story, but they might not be um, the biggest parts, or they might not be parts of great depth. That, from my perspective, is unfortunate. What I'm always looking for, what always interests me in a part, is the inconsistencies of the person. That's what I find really interesting. What in any character is contradictory? How people, people are fascinating to me. What they tell themselves, how they get through life. The biggest assholes in the world. I don't think Donald Trump gets up and says, "How am I going to mess everything up today?" I think he's able to, as other people are able to, convince themselves, at least to a significant degree, that what they're doing is actually good. And if people would only listen to them, everything would be great. How do people do that?
That's how the Fuhrer felt.
Yes, of course. I mean, I think there's some degrees of cynicism with certain leaders and certain, about that. But people are really interesting that way. And
your selection of roles. You also, I'll never forget, you're coming to me and asking me to create the role of a gay Hispanic hairdresser for you. And Diego, your creation, is one of, I mean, a shared contribution between us. I love Diego and his brother in that scene with you and Maurizio on the sofa.
Yeah, I love that. I love that too. And that's it's always you know it's always a joy to play something a little out of what the way people tend to look at you. I look like I don't know Phil Silvers or something, and but but in my mind I'm more like Harrison Ford, but you know I'm in the body that I'm in, and it's a confluence of all that stuff. But it's always uh, greatly enjoyable to play something that's a little outside the way you are perceived, of course, and that was a great.
Well, everyone, they got Fred Melamed, that voice. And so when we did Deadly Draw, I thought, okay, you're going to play a guy who whispers. And it was Whisper Walensky. And you won that Best Supporting Actor at the Vegas Cinema Awards. It was great.
Yeah, it was great. And again, that was another interesting departure for me because he was a gambler, but he was very insecure in his way. Even though in the early part of my career, I did a lot of voice work and used my voice for sort of commercial ends to make money. I don't think about my voice very much as a aspect of what I do. It's just kind of there. Um, but sometimes it can be very useful. But I try not to trade on it much because I tend to want to think of characters more internally, more human, more as human beings. And the way I look and the way I sound and all that stuff is just kind of the way it is. Although I have some degree of ability to change it, but I'm more interested in how the inside of what changing inside does to the outside.
Well, it's funny. You mentioned Liam Neeson, and you did another film with Liam Neeson after that. And I was watching Suspect, and I hadn't seen it in years. When was it? 1988, late 80s.
86, I believe, 86, 87.
Right. So I'm watching this movie, and there's Cher, and there's this other ADA, and I said, "My God, this guy is the Fred Melamed of the '80s." And then I said, "It's Fred,"
I was the Fred Melamed of the 80s.
because the look changed.
Well, I had hair in those days, or some hair anyway. I don't.
I know, and it was it was so funny that I didn't realize it was you.
Well, it's a long time ago. I mean, I'm now 69 years old. I was 30 years old. Of course, I made the wise character decision of getting fat and bald at an early age, so that I haven't aged all that dramatically because I was fat and bald when I was young. So it hasn't been that jarring, I guess. Um, but yeah, that was another early movie. That was very. I was in a lot of Liam Neeson's early movies. I was in.
Is there a third?
Yeah, there's a third and fourth and fifth, I think. Yeah, I was in a movie that didn't do very well here called The Mission with Robert De Niro. Do you know that movie?
Down in South America.
Exactly. So, but here's what happened in that movie. The villain in that movie is a character called Don Cabeza. And Roland Joffe, the director of that movie, was a big uh, partisan of mine, big fan of mine. He was he liked my work a lot. And he kept having me in. I was a little young to play that part at the time, but he kept having me in, and he had me and Richard Jenkins in together many times, many times, to read the hero and or one of the heroes and the villain of that movie. And Richard Jenkins' part, the part that he read over and over, eventually wound up going to oh God, Jeremy. Oh God, great.
Irons?
Jeremy what?
Jeremy Irons?
Yes, Jeremy Irons wound up playing that part, and and it wasn't me. It was so Robert De Niro was the main character. Robert De Niro had a very good friend, real estate agent, who became his friend, uh, who appeared in many movies with him. I'm now blanking on his name. Also, I'll think of it. Oh God, he died some years ago. Um, he played Maury in Goodfellas, the wig salesman.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not thinking of his name, but I will think of it. Anyway, he wound up getting that role. So they shot it in, it was all shot in Colombia, that movie. And when they got back after shooting the movie, the entire movie, Roland Joffe, the director, wasn't happy with the way that that guy did the part. He wasn't happy with it. So he had me revoice the guy's entire role. So if you see the movie The Mission, it's a different actor than me, but it's my voice doing the entire movie.
Maury the wig maker.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's hard to believe, but we've now gone past our allotted time, and so
I didn't get the chance to mention one of my 11 movies that's opening. All right, that's it. We'll get to the next one.
which?
I have so many. I have so many things.
Well, we know that the Al Pacino movie I
Well, there's one Al Pacino movie that's just about to open that was at the Toronto International Film Festival,
right.
which is called Easy's Waltz, which is also with Vince Vaughn. I'm about to go to Sofia, Bulgaria, to do another film with Al Pacino and Kiefer Sutherland called Father Joe.
And when is that?
When am I doing it?
Yeah.
At the end of this month. It won't be out for a long time. It's just being shot now. I have another movie that will be coming out. I think probably, if all goes as I'm hoping it will go, it will probably be at Sundance. It's a yet untitled celebrity pass movie starring John Hamm, John Slattery, Zoe Deutsch. I don't know the name of it yet. Directed and written by David Wayne, who I often work with. I have another movie that I'm doing in January called The Bookie and the Bruiser, also with Vince Vaughn and Theo James. Let's see.
And that'll be your fifth or sixth Vince Vaughn movie.
Fifth, I think. If I'm right. I can't remember. Let's see. I have another movie coming out soon called Don't Trip that a young writer-director called Alex Kugelman wrote. Another movie I'll be working on called Morning Has Broken, written by Matthew Wilder, which is about Joe Brooks, that's the...
Oh, that's fine. I remember you telling me about this a year ago. So it's finally you're playing Joe Brooks, right?
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting movie. Yeah, it's a fictional movie, but it's largely based on Joe Brooks. So it's about this guy who was a award-winning writer of movie music. He wrote, among other things, "You Light Up My Life," that song, for which won an Academy Award. But he always wanted to be a sort of a hero in the music world, not the cinema world. And he was very jealous of a lot of people who were more successful than he was as musicians. And he was most famous, or I guess infamous, I should say, for being the world's worst roofier before Bill Cosby showed up. He roofied hundreds and hundreds of women. This is back in the days when people used soapers. This is disco era. So this movie is about, there's one particular woman that he roofied who then he has a long relationship with. And this was actually true. So it's about these two weird characters. That's another movie I have coming up. And then the movie that you and I did together, Villa Hollywood.
Yes. For Steve Sturla.
For our friend Steve Sturla, which I don't know when it's going to be on the scene, but Rhonda Shear, who I had a television show on USA Network with 30 years ago, is also in that movie. So it was a lot of fun to do it because I know her for so long. And then I have a TV show that will soon be coming out called The Terrors of Jordan Mendoza, which I play a guest star in. It's kind of interesting Alfred Hitchcock, scary dreams that this main character has with all different guest stars. Great guest stars. Steve Buscemi, Fred Armisen, Lake Bill, Mark Maron, Tom Lennon, Wanda Sykes, really excellent guest stars he got. And that will be coming sometime soon as a streamer. I'm not sure which outlet it's going to be on, but I think...
Well, when we come back for the sequel to this, you can just read through all these. Unbelievable. I love it. Fred, they'll never take you alive.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. It's a pleasure, as always, to see you, and I look forward to seeing you in person.
Yeah. And goodbye, folks. We'll be back with Jack Maxwell as our next guest. Okay.
Oh, my friend Jack Maxwell.
Jack Maxwell. Thank you, Fred.